Hey, you're listening to the Intentional Mind podcast, and I'm your host, Ange Barnard. On today's episode, we're talking about not rushing through the season that you are in. If you're like me, you may often find yourself feeling that feeling of rushing, like you're being rushed. Even if someone doesn't put the pressure on you, you might be putting the pressure on yourself. Or you may be dealing with a difficult season and find yourself wishing that you could hit the fast forward button and just get through this season and get on to the next thing where you feel like life is going to be better, more peaceful, more joyful, whatever it is. So if you can relate to any of that, this episode is for you. So listen up. Also on this episode, we're going to be talking about some big changes that are happening on the Intentional Mind podcast and what you can expect as a listener moving forward. So one of the most common things people have been telling me lately is this. This is just a season. Hang in there. It gets so much easier. And close friends have been telling me this. Strangers in the restrooms of public places have been telling me this. And the reason why is because you can look at me and you can tell that I'm very sleep deprived and struggling through this season. So I'm currently in the newborn season with my son. And most recently, he's been very congested. So he's been crying a lot, wanting to be on me constantly, where it feels like there is no relief because even if I give him to his dad, he just screams. So I've been dealing with that and just keeping it real. It's been really hard. And the lack of sleep, it's just so hard to even focus without sleep. Parents, you can understand what I'm talking about, but it's a season. And I find comfort in knowing that these feelings, the way I'm feeling, it won't last forever. And I also think about how lately, my mind has really been shifting to the negative things in this season. So if you're dealing with a challenging season, hear me out. Is your mind doing that too? Are you shifting to focus on the things that make that season so difficult and just setting more energy there, generating more energy there because your focus is there? Or are you choosing to shift your focus and your energy to the goodness that is in every single season, no matter what you're experiencing? It takes us to consciously choose where our focus and energy is going to go. So what I've been noticing is I've been focusing on how hard the season is and what this thing that's wrong with the season, rate all the negative things versus shifting my energy and focus to the good things and the things I want more of in the season. I also thought about this because I was listening to a podcast episode from Susie Moore, and she was talking about how in hard times, we may find ourselves praying to God for help. Help me through this thing. Help me get X thing, right? But what about bringing him into the goodness that is there? And celebrating with him, bringing him into the things that you are grateful for, thanking him for those things. And I noticed that recently in me, my shift has been to focusing on the prayer, hey, God, please help me through this. This is so hard. Help me through this. Versus being thank you for this. And I got to consciously make the effort to focus on that because my default is not to focus on that. So I was thinking about, instead of saying, God, help me through this challenging time with my son and this lack of sleep and being able to function through it. I think that's important to ask for help, but also being hey, God, thank you. Thank you for this person that I trust that can watch my son for these couple hours so I can do things. Thank you for my husband who I can see on his face how it stresses him out. Not that I want him to be stressed, but I can see on his face how it stresses him out to see me tired, to see me struggling in any way because he loves me so much. Thank you for someone like that in my life. And I think we all can find things in our life right now to thank God for. Really think about it. And another reason I've been thinking about this too, there's multiple reasons, but my brother-in-law has been going through a hard time watching his best friend pass away. And his best friend is 39 or 40 years old, something like that, has a 6-year-old and has cancer. And my brother-in-law has sat with him, has held his hand, and just wept over watching his best friend, suffer, and just think about, his best friend's wife and their kid and just all the things. It's freaking hard. I could cry just thinking about it. And it's reminded me that not to rush through the season and just wish it away when it's challenging, because there's also so much goodness there. And someone who is passing, who is on their deathbed, wishes that they had more time with the people that they love. And that's all that really matters. And I find myself wanting to make other things matter so much more, like certain work stuff, things like that, or sometimes just giving my energy to stupid things like what someone said or just how it was triggered, that kind of stuff, when it's like, instead, I want to give my energy to enjoying the moment, being with the people I love, doing what I can to help shift the energy in that space if I find it dipping down, because it's all that really matters, is to be and with people we love and love to be with them. Like, how can we make that happen? And we got to be intentional about it. And I also think about how nothing is promised here in our life. Like, I look at my son, I love him so much. I love my husband so much. And I just think, like, their time here, I don't know how long of time they're going to have here. Same with me. I don't know how long I'm going to be here for. But I know that I want to enjoy it 100% as much as I can. I know that as a human, we're not going to enjoy every single moment. We're humans. I get that. But I'm going to try to enjoy as much as I can. But I got to be intentional about that. But what helps me enjoy it and bring the joy to the season is knowing that it's just a season. That even when it's hard, knowing that it will pass. And in fact, those hard things that we go through often make the good times so much better. I think about that as a hiker. When I have been hiking in horrible conditions, where so freezing cold and wet, hungry, in pain, all of that. It's like when I get that first meal, when I first dry off, it's like, this is so amazing. And I cherish that so much. And I cherish it so much because of the crap that I went through. So the reminder of, it's just a season. Whatever you're dealing with, it's just a season. It's also an essential season. Like, God doesn't make mistakes. He's a part of the stuff that's happening in your life. He turned it all into good. So just remember that. Trust that. And can you shift your focus to what there is to be grateful for, what is going well, because you got to make yourself do that, because you don't do it automatically. You got to be intentional about it. And I think a lot about my clients when they're experiencing a transition into a new role. There's a season that's really uncomfortable in between that they go through that helps them become that next person, that helps them, make the right connections. But that's also uncomfortable in the sense that they're grieving an old version of themselves to become someone new. And again, I find myself saying that to them. It's just a season. It's a part of it, though. It's part of the deal. You got to go through this stuff. It's easy to wish it away, to want to rush and get through it. But just know there's purpose in this. But can you also get yourself to focus on the goodness that is here right now? All right. I also want to talk to you about just rushing. There's another message of rushing that I really loved hearing earlier this week. And first off, it was on the Big Life Devotional podcast. And she was talking about this part in the Bible. You may have heard about it if you're familiar with the Bible at all. If not, just hear this out as a story where Jesus was meeting with Martha and her sister Mary. So Martha's sister Mary was the one that just sat and was talking to Jesus, where Martha was the sister that was running around trying to get all these things together, trying to worry about all these things. She was kind of even getting frustrated with Mary, that Mary was just sitting there enjoying her time talking to Jesus. And then Jesus basically tells Martha that she's worried about too many things and that Mary chose the good part. She chose to sit there and focus on, in a sense, what mattered most was to be present with people. versus rushing around trying to make progress, do all these things, and you're missing out on the goodness that is already here. Making meaningful connections, making meaningful memories. I need that reminder so often in my life because I can be the person always thinking about the next thing, wanting to rush through it, even in the season with my son, wanting to get all these other things done versus thinking about like just being with my son and looking at his cute little face, his chubby cheeks, his fat rolls, and just being there because he's not going to be long that he's going to be little like that. And the same is true for whatever you're dealing with. This is the only time that you will have that moment exactly as it is. We need that reminder. Okay. Another thing that I heard in the Big Life Devotional podcast that I took some notes, so I want to share this with you. She says, the busier we are doesn't reflect our importance. It often reflects our lack of priorities. But maybe you've been like me and you have thought, you're not important. You're not good enough unless you're busy, unless you're doing all these things, because that's somehow tied to your worth. I've struggled with that. But oftentimes when you're feeling like that, when you're feeling so busy, when you're feeling so rushed, it may indicate that there is a lack of priorities that you have. So you might want to take a look, like, what am I prioritizing? It's causing me to feel so busy that I shouldn't really be prioritizing. Like, what is most important here? Because you should never be too busy for your family or for people that you love to show up for them, or too busy to watch the sunset or just to be. Okay. She also talked about how Jesus was super productive, and he was important, yet he never was busy. You never got the feelings of like feeling rushed from him. What else do I have in my notes? Oh, I loved this. I actually wrote this down. She talked about the Japanese version of Psalm 23. I want to read this to you. It's so good. Hear me out. It says this. This is the Japanese version of Psalm 23, okay? So not exactly how Psalm 23 is written, but the Japanese style. And it says this, the Lord is my pace setter. I shall not rush. He makes me stop and rest for quiet intervals. He provides me with images of stillness, which restores my serenity. He leads me in ways of efficiency through calmness of mind, and his guidance is peace. Even though I have a great many things to accomplish each day, I will not fret, for his presence is here. His timelessness, his all-importance will keep me in balance. He prepares refreshment and renewal in the midst of my activity, anointing my mind and his oils of tranquility. My cup of joyous energy overflows. Surely harmony and effectiveness shall be the fruits of my hours. For I shall walk in the pace of my Lord and dwell in his house forever. So I think about that as like, if God is my pace setter, like he sets the pace, I don't have to feel like I need to rush through everything. I can rest, like he's in control at the end of the day. Sometimes I find myself shifting to that lower energy state where it's like, I got to rush, I got to make this happen or it's not going to happen. But I find that when I'm just trusting and I know it's not just all on me, it's like, I know God can open doors at any time. I don't have to rush. I don't have to force it. When I start having to feel like that, that means that's an indication to me I'm out of alignment. I'm starting to prioritize busyness and things that don't really matter. And I'm lacking trust in God also showing up for me. That's that indication to me. But I just love this Japanese version of Psalm 23. Okay. So what is next? Well, first off, let's talk about what you're going to get out of this episode, what you can think about before. So I want you to have a takeaway before I start talking about what's to come on the Intentional Mind podcast and all the changes. First off, think about your own life. I hope this causes you to reflect and to remind yourself that this is a season. Maybe it's a really awesome season that you're going through. Then soak it up. Enjoy it. Maybe it's a really challenging season. Know that it's not going to last forever, and there's goodness there if you choose to focus on the goodness and you give more energy there. And then also asking yourself, what are you learning through this season about yourself? And reminding yourself not to rush. And if you're feeling like you're rushing, that's an indication that you're out of alignment. You're shifting away from peace. You're starting to act like everything's on you. You have to force it. and stop and just think, like, what if I trusted more here? What if I surrendered more here? What if I was more present here? What if I prioritize relationships and time with people I love more here? That's another thing I've been thinking about with my brother-in-law's best friend passing away. I see all these people showing up and just loving on him because he's made such an impact in so many people's lives. Like, he's been the person that has shown up for them. And I want to be that person because so often in my life, I've just rushed through things. And I feel like I wasn't the person that was always showing up for other people. Like, in a way of where it's like, if something happens to me, it's like they show up in the same way for me. Because I took the time to be present with them versus prioritizing this other stuff that doesn't really matter. Like, I want to prioritize what matters. And that always comes back to people that you love, time with people that you love. Even when people want to make massive career transitions that I'm working with, it's usually for that reason. It's because they want to spend more time with the people that they love. They want to make more money so they can do more things with the people that they love. Like, it just comes back to that. So just remind yourself when things get crazy, like, that's the thing you always want anyways, time with people that you love. So it's there for you. It's here for you right now. Prioritize that. Okay. What is next for the podcast? So it's been very challenging for me to get on and record an episode with my baby and just all the things that are happening with this transition of being a mother and just feeling like I barely have time to go to the bathroom, let alone pop on here. I'm keeping it real. So with that said, I have thought about how can I make sure I'm still showing up because I want to. That's important to me. The show is important to me. Everyone that listens is important to me. I don't want to completely lose that. So I was thinking about that 5 energy that I talk about, which is like a we win situation where I can still show up and I can still, take care of myself during the season that I'm in and be present for my baby and myself. And I can still serve the people that I love. So what I've decided is I want to close out this season of the podcast. This is actually season 2. You may not be aware of it because I don't ever talk about seasons on the show, but it's actually written down in the podcast that it's season 2. So I want to wrap up season 2 and I want to get ready for season 3, which I plan to launch in September. So all of August, what you are going to hear is going to be, if you're listening to this in real time, even if you're not, the next 4 episodes, what you can expect is replays. Replays from the episodes that were the 4 most popular podcast episodes of all time. I wanted to dig those back out and play them for you. I listened to some of them recently and I was like, oh, this is so good. So I want to tell you what to expect. We're going to play those out and then you can expect a new season, season 3 in September. All right, these are the episodes that you're going to be hearing. The Law of Assumption and how to use it to create the results you desire. One of the most popular episodes. You're going to hear that replay. The Secrets of Happy, Productive People That You Need to Know. We get into some science stuff there. Another very popular episode. 3 Simple Habits That Make Everything Else Easier. And then the 4 Principles of the Mind That You Want to Know. Those 4 episodes we're going to put back on the show, bring them up fresh. And then in September, what is going to be new here in season 3 of the show is that I'm going to shift and focus more on serving the people who want to intentionally design their careers that they really love. Those are the clients that I work with the most. And I find a lot of the common challenges coming up that I want to address and target. So I recognize that for some people on the show that have been listening, that might be like, oh, I'm not interested in going through a transition in my career, or I'm good where I'm at, whatever it is, then these episodes that are coming up on the show might not be relevant to you. However, I'm going to be focusing on those, and I'm also going to still talk about energy. I want to bring more into the show some of the science that I used to talk a lot about around our mind and how that relates to us making, designing the lives that we really want. And what do we need to know about our mind? What does the science say about X thing? I just love bringing that into the show. I love geeking out about it. So you're going to hear more of that in season 3. More science stuff, more career design things. And I would love to bring in some more guests. It's been a while since we've had guests, but I would really like to bring some new thought leaders here onto the show in season 3. So that is what you can expect. All right. that is all then for today's show. I hope you really enjoyed it and that you have an awesome day. If you have been listening and you haven't left us a podcast review, I'll say it over and over until the cows come home. Can you please do that? That really helps the show grow. Have an awesome day. I will talk to you soon. Bye.